Hey everyone! Today I want to talk about the importance of peaceful protest, drawing lessons from two iconic figures, Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X. Now, according to the First Amendment, you have the right to freedom of speech, expression, religion, and to redress the government with grievances. But here's the thing. The First Amendment doesn't give you the right to be heard, block roads, inconvenience others while redressing your grievance, or force others to listen. And crucially, it doesn't give you the right to get violent when others ignore you. I firmly believe in the right to civil disobedience. But like everything else, there's a proper time and place for it, and a proper way to do it. All violence does is make the people you need supporting you turn their backs on you. Let's take a closer look at Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X. King was a champion of nonviolent protest. His peaceful marches, speeches, and demonstrations drew national attention to the injustices faced by African Americans. His approach was inclusive and aimed to unite people of all races against the common enemy of racial injustice. This allowed him to garner widespread support, not just from the Black community, but from many white allies as well. On the other hand, Malcolm X, while a brilliant orator and significant figure in the fight for civil rights, often endorsed a more militant approach. His rhetoric sometimes suggested that violence was an acceptable response to oppression. This stance, while stemming from understandable frustration and anger, often alienated potential allies and heightened tensions. King's philosophy of peaceful protest wasn't about being passive. It was about demonstrating strength through restraint, showing moral high ground, and forcing the oppressor to confront their own injustice. His methods brought about significant change. Think of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. So what can we learn from these two leaders? First, peaceful protest tends to attract more support. When you protest peacefully, you're more likely to win over the hearts and minds of those who might be on the fence. Second, violence can backfire. It can alienate potential allies and give opponents an excuse to dismiss your cause. This doesn't mean that anger and frustration aren't justified. They absolutely are, especially in the face of systemic injustice. But channeling that anger into peaceful, constructive action is often more effective in the long run. Remember, the goal of protest is to bring about change. And to do that, you need to win people over to your side. By protesting peacefully, you not only uphold the moral high ground, but you also create a space where dialogue and understanding can flourish. So, next time you feel the need to protest, consider the lessons from MLK and Malcolm X. Use your voice, your presence, and your passion to push for change, but do it in a way that builds bridges, not barriers. Remember, the power of peaceful protest can never be underestimated. Stay informed, stay engaged, and keep striving for a better world. Now, let's shift our focus to a more recent example: the protests and riots of 2020. Following the tragic death of George Floyd, the Black Lives Matter movement gained unprecedented momentum. People across the nation, and indeed the world, took to the streets to demand justice and an end to police brutality and a perceived system of racism. The initial protests were powerful displays of solidarity, echoing the nonviolent principles of Martin Luther King Jr. However, as the days progressed, a lot of these protests turned violent. Cities were terrorized, businesses were looted, and Black communities were burned, all in the name of Black Lives Matter. It's crucial to understand that the majority of protesters were peaceful, exercising their First Amendment rights responsibly. But the actions of a few can overshadow the message of many. The violence and destruction not only caused significant damage, but also diverted attention away from the core issues of racial injustice and police brutality. Just as Malcolm X's more militant approach sometimes alienated potential allies, so too did the riots of 2020. The destruction gave opponents of the movement ammunition to discredit the cause and paint all protesters with the same brush. This is a stark reminder of the importance of maintaining the moral high ground. Peaceful protest has the power to unite, to draw in those who might be undecided, and to create a platform for meaningful dialogue. Violence, on the other hand, often breeds more violence and division. The 2020 protests also highlighted the deep-seated anger and frustration felt by many in the Black community. These emotions are valid and understandable, But as we learned from the contrasting approaches of Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X, channeling that anger into peaceful, constructive action is often more effective. The Black Lives Matter movement has brought about significant awareness and some positive changes, but it's a long journey towards true equality and justice. By learning from the past and understanding the impact of our actions, we can continue to push for change in a way that builds bridges and fosters understanding. Remember, the goal is to create a better world for everyone. So let's honor the spirit of peaceful protest and work together to achieve lasting change. As we continue our exploration of the First Amendment and the right to protest, let's examine another recent and highly pertinent example: the violent pro-Hamas and anti-Israel protests. These events have raised significant concerns about public safety and the limits of free speech. The violent nature of these protests has sparked intense debates on how to balance the right to protest with the need to maintain order and protect citizens. On one hand, the First Amendment guarantees the right to assemble and express dissenting views. This is a cornerstone of democracy, allowing individuals to voice their opinions and advocate for change. However, when protests turn violent, they pose a threat to public safety and can undermine the very principles they aim to uphold. The damage to property, the physical harm to individuals, and the strain on law enforcement resources are all significant consequences that must be considered. Different perspectives emerge on how to address these issues. Some argue that any restriction on protests is a violation of free speech, while others believe that certain measures are necessary to ensure public safety. This delicate balance is a challenging aspect of governance and civil rights. The implications for future protests are profound. If violent protests become more common, there may be increased calls for stricter regulations and enforcement. This could potentially lead to a chilling effect on free speech, where individuals may feel discouraged from participating in peaceful demonstrations out of fear of repercussions. On the other hand, finding ways to facilitate peaceful protests while ensuring safety could strengthen democratic engagement and trust in public institutions. This requires thoughtful policies, effective communication, and a commitment to upholding the rights and responsibilities enshrined in the First Amendment. As we reflect on these recent events, it's crucial to remember that the right to protest is a powerful tool for change. But with that power comes responsibility. By advocating for peaceful and constructive forms of protest, we can work towards creating a society where voices are heard and positive change is achieved without compromising safety and order. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, and comment to support our channel. Stay informed, stay engaged, and keep striving for a better world. Catch you next time.